Here we are, and we are starting presentation number 3, Varnashram series number 2. I have sort of worked out about 12 or 13 of these series, and as I go along in my studies, I sort of make further presentations on these. So, as promised, what about Srila Prabhupada's statements that Varnashram is not possible? No, Prabhupada didn't just say one thing. As with other things, Prabhupada said two things, or appeared to say two things. And this is how we'll approach this.
Srila Prabhupada said it was not possible to establish Varnashram. 2. He also said that it should be established. Both views must be reconciled. 4. The reconciliation, conclusion.
Oh, the verse.
Dharma svanustita
pungsan vishvakshena kutashuyahat notpade ratim shrama eva ikeholam. Brahmananda Maharaj made this, as he said, Prabhupada said, this is Dharma, and here Dharma means Varnashram. Dharma svanustita pungsan. And ultimately, if this Varnashram is not leading to devotional service of the Lord, then Shrama eva ikeholam. But he presented, yes, therefore it's very important. Okay, now we remembered that verse. And here are the topics. So let's start with the first one.
Srila Prabhupada said it was not possible to establish Varnashram.
He said it.
The Varnashram society was considered to be the best institution for lifting the human being to the spiritual platform. But due to Kali Yuga, it is not possible to execute the rules and regulations of these institutions.
Due to Kali Yuga, it's not possible. Kali Yuga is such a bad age. Everything is so difficult. This type of organization, and everything is so confused. Especially when you start to get into this little area of what's my Varna. Generally, it's mixed, quite mixed. Kali Yuga really mixes things up. Obviously, for one reason, is that there's no samskars, no purification, no education. Things become very mixed up. But let's not get into that as yet. But Srila Prabhupada clearly says it's not possible. He said it was considered, but it's not possible. All right, and this is written in Srimad Bhagavatam. It has weight. This is Prabhupada's purport in the Bhagavatam. And in teachings of Lord Chaitanya, he says,
when regulated life culminates in devotional service to the Lord, one attains his perfection. Otherwise, such regulations are simply a useless waste of time.
Right, we're already devotees. As Prabhupada says, culminates in devotional service. Regulated life, Varnashram, culminates in devotional service. One attains his perfection. Otherwise, such regulations, Varnashram, is simply a useless waste of time. Shrama eva hi kevalam. Not necessary. Prabhupada also said that. And Prabhupada continues, say here in a letter.
Acceptance of Varnashram means a little easy progress to spiritual life. Otherwise, it has no importance to us.
These are pretty clear. And there's others. This is not the only statements that Srila Prabhupada makes. Srila Prabhupada made statements that are very quite clear that, and without qualifying the statements, that Varnashram is something that is for another age and that is really not so necessary for Vaishnavas. It's not needed. And devotees rightly quote these things. But now, from the previous previous presentation, I presented quite a few quotes that Srila Prabhupada says in favor of Varnashram. And I'd just like to present a few more. These are that Varnashram should be established.
Srila Prabhupada also said Varnashram must be established.
All right, here, Bhagavatam, 5th canto. What did Srila Prabhupada write?
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, however, wanted to re-establish Daiva Varnashram. In Daiva Varnashram, there cannot be acknowledgement of social status according to birthright, because in Bhagavad Gita it is said that the determining considerations are guna and karma, one's qualities and work. It is this Daiva Varnashram that should be established all over the world to continue a perfect society for Krishna consciousness. This may be astonishing to foolish critics, but it is one of the functions of a Krishna conscious society.
Prabhupada writes it, and of course, Adi Guru put the emphasis on this in terms of Daivi Varnashram. But in any case, Prabhupada now is clarifying about Daivi Varnashram, and I won't have time to get into that, but from what I can see, there's Asura Varnashram, Varnashram, and Daivi Varnashram. But Daivi Varnashram is the practice of Varnashram by pure devotees, by Vaishnavas. Prabhupada says it should be established. It's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's mission. All right, what else did Srila Prabhupada say?
And money spent for Krishna's palace, for Krishna's temple, for Krishna's worship, as gorgeously as, not for false. This is the human civilization. And to organize this, Varnashram will help you to divide the society, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, as there is division in the body. That will help.
I had quoted this earlier. This is, if you see, 1 month before Srila Prabhupada leaves this world. Prabhupada speaks later on also about Varnashram, even much closer to his departure. And for me, that's a very weighty thing, because it's obviously on Srila Prabhupada's mind. Prabhupada, as he's leaving this world, and Srila Prabhupada has decided he's going, he's thinking about Varnashram, he's talking about Varnashram, he's putting it in his Bhaktivedanta purports, in the 10th canto, in Krishna's Leela. Finally, Srila Prabhupada got to Krishna Leela, and he's talking about the importance of Varnashram. This isn't that quote. That, once again, you can see in the final lesson video. And of course, it's there in the Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada says, and that will help. It will help what? It will help devotees. It will help devotees in their own devotional activities. And another quote, again, from the February conversation.
Harishori, I just remember 2 or 3 years ago there was a pamphlet came out about introducing the Varnashram system in the society, but actually nothing came of it. Prabhupada, yes, that time was not right. Now you can do something.
Prabhupada is saying, all right, well previously, and I also remembered something quite vaguely in Montreal about some little pamphlet coming out and being spread around ISKCON about Varnashram, and it was an initiative. I don't know where the initiative came from. I haven't tracked that down. But Srila Prabhupada just says, all right, well, the time wasn't right at that time, but now you can do something. Prabhupada is emphasizing, yes, you can do something, and he gives more emphatic instructions. So,
both views of Srila Prabhupada must be reconciled.
We can't just choose one or another. We need to be able to reconcile Srila Prabhupada's apparently opposing statements in such a way that it's very harmonious. And of course, this is not a new phenomena. There are other things that Srila Prabhupada also said. For instance, one controversial one is, no one falls down from Vaikuntha, and we were with Krishna in the spiritual world. Reconcile it. But anyway, that's another topic. And other things that Srila Prabhupada also said. So what's our approach to this?
A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial. For such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. So I think
Vaishnavas know this Siddhanta Bulya Chitte verse, and philosophical discussion on how to resolve. I really wish I was there, because no doubt I'd be sitting with other devotees, pro, con, and we'd have more than just this one-way presentation where Sivarama Swami is talking to a camera, some cameras, and there'd be just This is what's going on. Siddhanta bolya chitte nakaralas. That we explore and go deeply and see if we can actually arrive at a common understanding. And Rupa Goswami explains how this process should take place. This is in Laghu Bhagavatamrita.
When contradictions are found in the Vedic scripture, it is not that one statement is wrong. Rather, both statements should be seen in such a way that there is no contradiction.
That's a real challenge. Prabhupada says, and it's certainly something that, at least to my Western way of thinking, is, well, it's either one or it's on the other. It can't be both. But we see examples like that. Dear Lalita, dear Odatta, dear Shanta. Krishna has so many different opposing natures. Very proud, and at the same time very humble. So all things are possible. Here Rupa Goswami gives this very excellent instruction. He says both statements should be seen in such a way that there is no contradiction. So how can we see Srila Prabhupada's instructions in this way that we can at least resolve them? Will everybody be completely satisfied? I don't know whether that's possible, but many devotees be satisfied, and devotees can actually find a way forward to what seems to be Prabhupada's very persistent emphasis to us in his final years, in his final months, in his final days.
The reconciliation.
This is my humble effort at the reconciliation. I'm sure that there are many wise devotees who could resolve this a little better, but these are the faculties that I have.
So it is very difficult to introduce Varnashram, but at least there must be some idea.
So, once again, remember earlier on, this was in a purport, this was some. Here, this is the same February conversation. Now Prabhupada says, yes, it's very difficult. He's gone from not possible, that it's very difficult to introduce, but there must be some idea. So if something's very difficult, how do you introduce it? Well, you look at the essence. In other words, what's difficult? It may be that the details, the practical application, in which way things were done in a previous age was difficult, but there are certain essential features. Varnam, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Brahman, Shudra, Grihastha, Brahmachari, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. These are eternal principles. We saw earlier, Narada Muni said, these are eternal principles. Tasya kartaram apimam. There is a verse which is not in this presentation, but you'll find it in the 7th chapter of 7th canto, And Narada Muni says that sages or Brahmins, according to time, place, and circumstance, they adjust the details of Varnashram accordingly. Krishna, in the 11th canto, when he's introducing Varnashram, he points out how in Treta Yuga, that most of, at that time, passion and ignorance, goodness and passion were dominant. So Kshatriyas and Brahmins were the majority. Later on, in the next age, when it is passion, then it's Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. In this age, he says almost everyone is Shudra. So interesting that you would immediately think that when you have, for instance, Kshatriyas and Brahmins are the majority of the population, you have a different Varnashram structure than you have when the majority of the people are Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. And when Kalo Shudra Sambhavan, when being a Shudra is like being the president, then in this age, again, you have to adjust the structure. So the structures then were already somewhat different because the people, their qualifications, their ability to work was also different. So some type of change. So Srila Prabhupada says there must be some idea. I haven't put it here, but when Abhiram Prabhu is talking about his reflections on Srila Prabhupada in Varnasrama. This is in a email exchange that he had with Prithu, that Prithu Prabhu sent to me. Prabhupada said, I want to go to Gita Nagari, and I want to sit down and contemplate the Varnasrama. Well, he said, I want to sit down and apply Varnasrama. And Abhiram then, he comments on that. He said, I have a lot of, he was Prabhupada's nurse. Prabhupada told him he used to sleep beside Prabhupada's bed at night. This was in 77. Prabhupada says, never leave me. He said, you stay here. So he said, I have lots of experience with Srila Prabhupada. And to me, I'm paraphrasing him now, to me when Srila Prabhupada said, I want to sit down, it meant I want to sit and think. I want to think, what does it mean to begin Varnashram? And Srila Prabhupada wanted to show Varnashram in Gita Nagari. That's why he went in 77 to London. And then because he had that complication, urology complication, Srila Prabhupada realized it's too late. In fact, the doctor told him, oh, Krishna Maharaj, Prabhupada is functioning on half a kidney. So he went back. But Prabhupada wanted to go to Gita Nagari, and he wanted to sit down. And Abhiram Prabhu comments, yes, Prabhupada wanted to think in detail. In other words, it's not that Srila Prabhupada always had everything already planned out to the very atom, to the very, very last detail. And that's why when Prabhupada first came to America in New York, he was riding the subway. He was studying what are Americans like. So similarly, what would Varnashram really mean in that context? So there must be some idea.
Prabhupada, not required. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu denied. I am not Brahmin, I am not Kshatriya, I am not this, I am not this. He rejected. But in the Bhagavad Gita, the Chatavanya Maya Sristam, so we are Krishna, preaching Krishna consciousness. It must be done.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his commentary on when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu keeps saying, yes, this is external, and then Ramananda Roy, because Lord Chaitanya wants to know about what is sadhan and what is sadhya, he says, Varnasrama Vacharata, no, this is external. So often devotees say, well, Lord Chaitanya says we have nothing to do. Srila Prabhupada discusses this topic in more length than you see it here. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a sannyasi. He's already given up the world. He has nothing to do with it. But Krishna says, Chaturvarnyam, we're preachers. Therefore, while this may apply to the Lord, it doesn't necessarily apply to us.
One, establishing...
Wait, excuse me. Ari's doing good. I have to introduce this one because this is me. So, this is sort of my train of thought. No doubt it can be edited and it can be done in a much better way, but I am what I am. So my understanding here is that establishing the Varnashram Dharma of the previous age, and I gave the examples of what Krishna himself says, in all its details is not possible. We can't even do what happened just a few thousand years ago, 5,000 years ago in Dwarka and other places. But Prabhupada said there has to be some idea. And I'm not putting forward what the idea is, but there has to be some idea, because Srila Prabhupada repeat this. Somehow or another, we need to be able to package and incorporate the principles of Varnashram in such a way that they become favorable for devotees' practice of Krishna consciousness, because Prabhupada keeps repeating, but they are falling down. And he wasn't just talking about sannyasis. And devotees should be trained in Varnashram college. And Prabhupada emphasized this thing, because Varnashram is not just something you pull out of the hat. So devotees will agree that this is what Srila Prabhupada said, but you don't make a Varnashram college overnight. you've got to make a curriculum. You've got to train teachers. You have to have a clear idea. Do we, in this Krishna consciousness movement, have a clear idea on Varnashram? We've got a clear idea on who is God. We have a clear idea on Prema Bhakti. We have a clear idea on Sadhana Bhakti. We have a clear idea on so many things, but we don't have a clear idea on what our social structure is. And if we want to have Varnashram colleges, that Srila Prabhupada is really moving forward on, we need to have a clear idea, some idea. And that some idea has to be clear. It has to be a curriculum. It has to be teachable. It has to be teachable, and not only for Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, but we've got to train brahmacharis. And probably the brahmachari ashram is the one where we have most training. Now, after many years, we see a difficulty in the sannyas ashram. We're getting some training in the sannyas ashram. Grihastha ashram really needs training, because the Grihastha ashram doesn't perform so well statistically. And what to speak of Vanaprastha, we've yet to figure it out. What is Vanaprastha in our Krishna consciousness movement? Here's an example, just reminded me. You read 7th canto Narada Muni, you'll forget that. No one's going to be a Vanaprastha. Grow your hair, grow your nails, you don't bathe, skin bark, clothes made of bark or skin of an animal, you have to go off into the forest. Now, maybe in Tirupati living in the forest is easy, but in Hungary or in Gita Nagari, living in the forest, what to speak of go a little further north in Canada, you're going to live in the snow. So that's the business for really accomplished yogis, not for comfort lovers like us. What's Varnashram? What Srila Prabhupada said, Varnashram. Yes, you go to holy places, you travel to temples, and when he was talking about Varnashram for us, Vanaprastha for us, that was what Srila Prabhupada, the essence of Vanaprastha. What does it mean? Now you're taking a step away from family. Husband and wife no longer see each other as man and woman. They see each other as devotees. And they just help each other to advance in spiritual life. The business is finished, everything else is over, and the concentration is fully on spiritual life. That's the essence. And you don't have to go off into the forest and go through all kinds of difficult austerities. The greatest austerity is preaching and practicing Krishna